Here is a Honeywell fan. This is the Honeywell HFT-311B as in bah, 0.5 amps, and the UO date is 803, so this was likely sold in the mid-2000s, early to mid-2000s. It is made in China, 120 volts, 60 hertz of course. worldwideweb.kaz.com. I never paid much attention to these fans because I thought that they were kind of loud and not that powerful until I cleaned and serviced the 18-inch one that I have, and in clean, proper functioning condition I was actually quite impressed with it. It was not particularly loud and it moved a tremendous amount of air. I've never worked with this size before, but when I saw it I figured it was worth giving it a shot in case it's as good as the larger one. Now, I have the 12-inch oscillating fan that has what might be the same blade. Let's see what size it is. I would guess it's a 13 based off of the model number, but it's actually only about a 9.5, maybe 10. Yeah, I'll call it a 10-inch blade. So it's fairly small. It might be a little bit smaller than the oscillating fan. This one is very dirty. There's a tremendous amount of accumulation on the leading edge of the blade, so the performance will increase significantly once we clean it up. There's also a lot of hair and so forth on the guard, which will also hinder performance significantly. It does have a PSC motor. I thought that there was I don't know if there's another size between this and the 6-inch one. I think that there might be another size between this one and the 6-inch one, but I'm not completely certain. It's very similar in design and appearance to the 18-inch one that I have. Pretty much identical in form factor. Base is the same, the back of the motor design looks the same. Switch appears to be similar. I think the 18-inch one has one of those child safety, like push to turn ones. Not push to talk, of course. And probably has a very similar motor, just a different size. Like with the 18-inch one, this motor's getting pretty caked. So it won't be long before it starts overheating if we don't get it cleaned up. It is wall mountable. A little heavy just for those little plastic cutout things. This is before the fused plug era, so we have no fused plug. And despite being comprised entirely of plastic, it doesn't feel particularly cheap. The guard is pretty strong. It's not flimsy around the outside. The stand's a little bit wobbly, but nothing crazy. It's pretty stable on the top, and it feels like it's reasonable enough quality. And Honeywell at the time was still a pretty respectable brand. Arguably even today they're probably one of the better brands out there, but certainly have become cheaper like everything else. Although curiously enough, I have seen that some of the 6-inch turbo fans in more recent years have started to ship with PSC motors. Alright, let's go ahead and plug this thing in. We'll check it with the kilowatt meter so we can find out what the power factor is, which will give us an indication if the capacitor is still good or not. I would expect it to be. So we're going to be testing at 121.5 the volts. Let's begin on the low. Alright, so we definitely have some dry bearings in there, but that's no surprise. And the amount of air it's pushing is disappointing for the noise, but again, it's super dirty. So the performance should probably double or triple once we clean it. It's not the quietest thing out there, but it's not obnoxious either. I really do feel like the blade could have had more pitch. It's pretty shallow. That can't be more than 3/4 of an inch deep, maybe. That's the same way I feel about the oscillating version. The blade just doesn't have enough pitch. So you end up with a very high-speed blade and it makes a fair bit of noise. Yeah, unimpressive, but I think that's just because it's dirty. That is 0.3 the amps, 36.4 the watts, with a power factor of 0.98. So despite being only 10 inches, it seems to draw considerably more power than the oscillating fan, which means perhaps it'll run faster and move more air. I'm not sure. Let's find out. Go to the number 2. That was a pretty good increase in speed. It is considerably out of balance, which would explain the bearing noise. We'll have to balance it before we use it. That's 0.36 to amps, 43.8 to watts, with a power factor of 1 right on the nose. So the capacitor is still good. The airflow is still unimpressive for the same reasons I mentioned before. You can tell this portion of the guard is letting a ton more air through than this portion because of how dirty it is. And this is more dense, so the hair blocks up quicker. Okay, let's try the hide. There's a decent variance in speeds on this. That is 0.41 the amps, 49.1 the watts, with a power factor of 0.98. It's kind of interesting that the power factor is highest on medium. That's not typical. It's actually starting to push a decent amount of air now. Of course, it's also getting very loud. I can feel it clear across the room. But it does sound very restrictive, which is going to be a result of the dust and air accumulation. I suspect this will probably work pretty well once we get it cleaned up. It's horribly out of balance. It's vibrating the whole table. The bearings are still pretty free, but I'm sure they can definitely use some oil. This definitely has some hours on it, and probably wasn't used in a particularly clean environment either.